If I see Juke, if I see Gotti, if I see Migo, or if I see Youngster, I'ma get on this shit. Ain't got nothing to do with nobody else, bro. You don't know that Juke put a hit out, bro. Don't know this shit. Hey, man, look, bro. My Juke put a $40,000 hit on.
Vaughn was just he was a different individual, bro. He was just, something was wrong with him. That's not human, man. You're not regular, man. The devil, man. That's the devil, man. Real, man. That nigga
stole the chain, bro. We tried like he took it. He stole my own chain.
I don't take that serious, man. They're trying to kill me my whole life, bro. I ain't gonna lie. You gotta show me for real.
They got his own, look, they got a group called Trap City Gang.
Right.
That's the group, just the group.
Right.
Gang, and his picture's on there, and then they...
Welcome back to Juicy Pulse, your daily dose of scandal and glamour. Let's spill the tea on today's biggest celebrity stories. Lil Jeff's death is still setting the internet on fire, and now his killer just lit another match. He's got a cold-blooded message for Jeff's crew, and trust, he's not making anything easy for them. After dropping the bombshell online about what Jeff's final words were, Trap City Rob stirred up a storm. Jeff's people are now out for blood, vowing to handle business by any means necessary. And that's when things took an even wilder turn. More beef, more bodies, the streets are talking, and a lot of folks are starting to point out how much Lil Jeff had in common with King Von. Same vibe, same energy, and now the same tragic fate. The deeper you go, the wilder it all gets. And guess what? We got the scoop on what really went down in Jeff's last moments. One thing's crystal clear: Trap City. Rob ain't scared of nobody. This man emptied an entire clip into the legendary Lil Jeff without hesitation. That alone sends a message loud and clear. Now Jeff's squad is hunting for revenge, but Rob just fired back with a chilling reminder. People been trying to take him out his whole life, and none have succeeded. Trap City Rob wasn't bluffing. And the receipts came in hot on June 8th, 2024. Surveillance cameras caught it all, and what went down that night proved one thing: his enemies are gonna have a hard time catching him slipping. That night changed everything. By the early hours of June 9th, the streets of Chicago were buzzing. Someone had been shot and killed. The identity wasn't public at first, but soon after, Spot News confirmed the victim was none other than rising Chicago rapper Bloodhound Lil Jeff. It didn't take long before raw CCTV footage of the moment hit the net, and it was pure chaos. The events unfolded minute by minute like a scene straight out of a movie. The footage taken from the 6,600 block of South Rhodes Avenue showed a crew gathered near a house and a line of parked cars. Among them, Jeff's close people, one in a black whip, another in all black, one rocking red who was later confirmed to be Q50, and someone else in a white hoodie. Then came the twist. A guy in yellow shorts tried hopping into a car nearby. In the footage, Lil Jeff peeped the move. Instantly, the black car door swung open. It was him. Jeff jumped out and charged toward the man in yellow shorts with no hesitation. But just as the chase started, his body slipped out of sight behind a huge pillar on the house. While Jeff was locked in on his target, his boys didn't back him up. Instead, their focus shifted to a gray car. And just like that, shots were fired. Lil Jeff did land one, hitting the guy in yellow shorts right in the chest, but before he could finish the job, two more shooters popped out of an alley and sprayed back. Lil Jeff's body hit the pavement hard, thrown back at the foot of the porch, and while he lay there helpless and bleeding out, the shooters didn't hesitate. They finished what they started. Word is they dumped a whole mag into him from above, making sure he wasn't getting back up. Q50 and another shooter let off a few rounds in return, but at that point, it was already a wrap. There was no saving Jeff, and just like that, the crew bailed. They jumped back in the whip and peeled off, leaving Jeff behind, lying in a pool of his own blood. The CCTV footage didn't lie. It even showed Jeff's guys trying to carry him off that porch, desperately trying to get him help. Scanner reports later confirmed it. The victim had been hit 15 times. His crew rushed him to the hospital, but despite their efforts, Lil Jeff was pronounced dead on arrival. By the time police got to the scene, the evidence was everywhere. 58 shell casings scattered all across the ground like confetti after a war. Meanwhile, the man in yellow shorts, the same one Jeff was chasing, also showed up at the hospital. He had taken a bullet to the chest, but unlike Jeff, he made it out alive. That man, none other than Trap City Rob. He looked death in the face and walked away breathing. But Rob didn't stay free for long. According to Trench's news, the cops scooped him up shortly after. See, hitting Jeff 19 times, especially when he was already down, crossed the line. Authorities said that wasn't self-defense, it looked more like overkill. But then things took a wild turn online. Reports started popping up on Reddit, showing that Trap City Rob's murder charge had been downgraded. Yup, from first-degree murder to just a gun charge. Another Reddit post claimed Rob was originally locked up for the killing of Lil Jeff because someone placed him at the scene. A witness told cops he was there when Jeff got dropped. But once the Chicago PD dug deeper, they couldn't prove he actually pulled the trigger. With no solid proof he was the shooter, they threw out the murder charge and hit him with a firearm offense instead. Then boom, a pic of Trap City. Rob leaked onto Reddit and fans were shocked. He looked healthy, calm, and in high spirits, which was a big relief for his growing fan base. His following's gotten so strong, they even got a subreddit named after him, Trady UNC Gang, with over 2,500 loyal members calling themselves nephews. Now, folks on Reddit were warned to chill with the fake news just to get attention. Some details might have been off, but one thing they nailed, how all this madness started in the first place. According to one of the Reddit posts, the whole beef between Trady and the Bloodhounds kicked off when Lil Jeff snatched Trady Carter's chain. And that part, 100% facts. Trap City. Rob himself told the story. Lil Jeff and Trady used to be tight, but everything flipped when Jeff crossed the line and stole that chain. According to Trady Rob, this whole mess kicked off over one piece of jewelry. One of his guys let Lil Jeff borrow his chain, no big deal, right? But Jeff never gave it back. Instead, he came up with a wild excuse saying he got into it with the cops and lost it during the chaos. That chain, it turned into a death sentence. What started as a petty move spiraled into a deadly street war that took the lives of dozens of young people in Chicago. And even after Lil Jeff was 6 feet under, his crew refused to let it end. They kept sliding for him, turning the streets into a battleground. One of the first to get caught in the crossfire, Trap City Carter, a name that would soon make headlines. Jeff's crew was on a mission for revenge, and whether Jeff started it or not didn't matter anymore. They were coming for anybody repping the other side. It wasn't long before they locked in on Carter. On October 20th, 2024, news reports started buzzing about a deadly shooting in Chicago the night before. Gunfire had erupted in the city's Oakland neighborhood, another block caught up in the endless cycle of retaliation. By the end of it, a man lay on the pavement bleeding out, his life slipping away fast. The clock read around 8:41 p.m. when it all went down on South Ellis Avenue, a street already scarred by violence. Witnesses told police 2 men rolled up with weapons drawn and didn't even hesitate. They lit it up on sight. The 3-year-old didn't stand a chance. In just seconds, the shooters let off shots and vanished into the night, speeding away in a white car. Paramedics rushed in and raced the child to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but it was already too late. The toddler had been hit multiple times in the chest. The blood loss was just too much. Despite the doctors doing everything they could, the child was pronounced dead shortly after arriving. The medical examiner later confirmed the victim's name, Chevelle Carter. And while most were left heartbroken by the loss, Lil Jeff's affiliates were celebrating. They didn't even try to hide it. They hit social media with cryptic captions just like Lil Jeff used to do, dropping hints that this killing was revenge, a brutal payback for their fallen homie. They wanted the world to know they had just taken out one of their top enemies. Q51, one of Lil Jeff's closest people, jumped on Instagram and made it clear. He posted a pic of 3 blunts and a caption saying he was finally done sliding. For now. Lil Scum and Lil G, feet kicked up, now I can get rich. I love and miss y'all, he ended it with, P.S. it ain't over. And he meant every word. Because just days later, things got even uglier. Another life was lost in the ongoing war. But this time, the victim had nothing to do with gang beef. Just another innocent person caught in the middle of a street war spinning out of control. November 2nd was supposed to be a day of mourning, Trap City Carter's final send-off. But instead, it turned into another heart-shattering tragedy in Chicago. What was meant to be a peaceful funeral procession quickly turned into a scene of chaos and bloodshed. News broke that a woman had been gunned down while riding in the procession for her own brother in South suburban Dixmoor. She came to grieve, to say her last goodbye, and ended up losing her life in the process. At exactly 12:01 p.m., Dixmoor police were called out to a crash near 147th Street and Sealy Avenue. A white Jaguar SUV had slammed into a house, but the crash wasn't the real horror. It's what they found inside that shook the block. Behind the wheel was a 34-year-old woman slumped over, riddled with bullets. She'd been hit multiple times. That Jaguar was part of the funeral procession, rolling out from St. Mark's Church in Harvey. Somewhere along the route, shots rang out. The same streets meant to carry her brother to rest had now become her own final ride. Paramedics rushed her to UChicago Medicine Ingalls Memorial Hospital, fighting to keep her alive. But the injuries were just too much. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Authorities later identified her as Romesh Turner from Calumet Park, Trap City Carter's sister. And for Lil Jeff's affiliates, it didn't matter. Whether it was gunning down family or pulling up at a funeral, they showed they had zero limits when it came to getting revenge for their fallen brother. Shooting up a grieving woman in broad daylight, just another move in their ruthless playbook. But here's the real twist. Chicago ain't the only place where things are spiraling like this. Turns out gangsters in other parts of the country are pulling the same grim tactics. And the cycle just keeps spreading. Another cold-blooded hit, this time in Memphis. Just like what went down in Chicago, someone took aim at a man during a funeral. On January 13th, 2024, Memphis was rocked by the shocking murder of a well-known local figure, Big Jook. Big Jook wasn't just anybody. He was heavily involved in managing his brother Yo Gotti's label, Collective Music Group, CMG, and had deep ties in the city's music scene. That day, he showed up at Perignon Restaurant and Event Center on Winchester Road. It was supposed to be a peaceful service to honor his late uncle, Eric Bone. But Jook seemed to know something was off. Just hours before the funeral, he posted a chilling message. They don't want to face you. They want to snake you. Stay alert too. Stay alive. Watch your back at all times. Put snakes on the plate and eat great. It hit differently once people realized what was about to happen. Family and friends had gathered to show love for Uncle Eric, a name that still echoed through the Memphis streets. Back in the 80s, Eric Bone was a legendary cocaine kingpin, running the Bone family's operations and making serious moves. He passed on December 31st, 2024, at the age of 63, and his funeral brought the city's OGs out. But the vibe turned deadly outside the venue. In the parking lot, gunshots erupted without warning. Panic broke out, and when the smoke cleared, Big Jook was lying on the ground, bleeding out. He didn't make it. The Memphis police launched a manhunt right away, scrambling for leads. They asked the public to step up and share anything they saw. Luckily, just a day later, witnesses came forward and dropped major info that could help crack the case wide open. By Sunday, the investigation into Big Jook's murder started heating up. A witness at the scene stepped forward with a major lead. The suspects had rolled up in a white SUV. The vehicle was described as a white Ford Explorer with black rims and dark-tinted windows, and guess what? Surveillance cameras had already caught it on tape. That footage became key evidence for detectives trying to piece together what really went down. But that wasn't the only clue. People at the funeral said they saw two shady-looking men sitting in the back of the church, keeping a close eye on Big Jook during the service. The pair dipped out before the rest of the mourners, which only raised more suspicion. It looked like Jook was being watched, targeted, from the moment he stepped in. And here's where it gets even more twisted. The car Big Jook was in also had his mother inside. She was sitting in the back seat when bullets started flying. Whoever was behind this hit didn't just want Jook gone. They clearly didn't care who else might get caught in the crossfire, innocent or not. So now the question is, who would want Yo Gotti's brother dead? That's when internet detectives started digging, and what they uncovered pointed to one name, Young Dolph. You see, the beef between Yo Gotti and Young Dolph ran deep. And after Dolph was gunned down in 2021, Big Jook made it clear he wasn't mourning. In fact, he mocked the situation. On Instagram, he openly dissed a street mural that honored Dolph, Moneybag Yo, and NLE Choppa, calling it out in disgust and making it known he wasn't feeling the love being shown to his brother's rival. And that public disrespect might have painted a target on his back. Big Jook's shady IG post after Young Dolph's death wasn't just trash talk, it might have sealed his fate. See, when he clowned that mural with Dolph's face on it, tagging up disrespectful captions and laughing it off, the streets were watching, people took it personal, and some of Dolph's people, they never forgot. Rumors started swirling that this wasn't just about gang beef or label rivalry. This was revenge, real street justice. Word on the block was that certain folks close to Dolph felt Jook had crossed the line too many times, and with Dolph gone, they were ready to handle it themselves. And that theory only picked up steam after the hit. People online pointed out how Big Jook had been moving way too loud, always flexing, showing up at public events, and taunting enemies without any real security. It was like he thought he was untouchable. But the streets, they don't forget, and they definitely don't forgive. What's even crazier is that some fans think the shooting wasn't just random, it was timed, planned out to the minute. The two men seen at the funeral, some believe they weren't just watching Jook, they were giving the green light. As soon as he stepped outside, boom, the hit was in motion. And now, Yo Gotti's camp is completely silent. No statements, no posts. Nothing. But insiders are saying things are heating up behind the scenes. Some believe this hit was a message, loud and clear, that nobody, not even family, is off limits. This murder has cracked open the old wound between CMG and Dolph's legacy. And if what the streets are saying is true, this isn't the end. It's just the start of a whole new wave of retaliation. Buckle up, because Memphis might be headed straight into another war zone. As the days rolled on, whispers in Memphis turned into full-blown chaos. People weren't just talking about Big Jook anymore, they were bracing for what might come next. The streets were buzzing with one thing, retaliation, and not the kind that stays quiet either. Folks close to CMG were already moving different, more low-key, more paranoid, like they knew something big was about to go down. Meanwhile, internet detectives kept digging, and their focus shifted to another key figure, Straight Drop, the man accused of killing young Dolph. Some fans started to believe that everything, Jook's death, the timing, even the way it happened, was part of a bigger plan connected to that case. There were even wild claims floating around that someone from Dolph's circle might have funded the hit. No proof, no names, just pure street speculation. But in a city like Memphis, that's all it takes to set things off. At the same time, more heat landed on Yo Gotti. Blogs were exploding with theories, linking Gotti to everything from secret deals to silent feuds within his own circle. Some even started saying CMG was falling apart from the inside. Too much pressure, too many enemies, and now the loss of Big Jook, his own blood, had pushed the whole crew to the edge. And while Gotti stayed silent, fans noticed something strange. He canceled appearances, skipped out on public events, and even delayed some music drops. Was it grief, or was he hiding from something? One thing's for sure, this wasn't just another gang rivalry anymore. With Big Jook gone and revenge hanging heavy in the air, both sides were waiting on the next move. Everyone knows how this game plays out. It's never just one body. This feels like the calm before the storm. And Memphis, it's holding its breath because something's coming. Just when people thought things might cool off, Memphis got hit with another twist, and this one shook the city. A leaked voice memo started circulating online, and it allegedly featured someone close to CMG speaking on Big Jook's death. The voice, calm but bitter. The message, straight venom. In the recording, the speaker claimed Jook's murder wasn't just street politics, it was an inside job. That's right. The internet blew up with rumors that someone within the circle might have tipped off the shooters, a setup from the inside. All of a sudden, loyalty was in question and CMG started looking shaky. Folks started naming names. Associates who were once all over social media repping CMG went ghost. No posts, no stories, no shows. The silence made it worse. Fans started asking, who snitched, who switched, and who cashed out on Jook's head? Meanwhile, young Dolph's camp stayed quiet, but that didn't stop people from connecting the dots. Old videos resurfaced showing Jook and Dolph trading shots on social media years before the murder. What started as online trolling had turned into real bloodshed, and now people were wondering how deep this feud really went. To make things wilder, a few local bloggers claimed they'd been warned to stop covering the story. One even said he got a threatening DM telling him to leave CMG business alone. That only added fuel to the fire. Now folks weren't just curious, they were obsessed. This ain't just rap drama anymore. It's betrayal, blood, and silence. Everyone's watching, everyone's paranoid, and nobody knows who's next. Memphis is on edge and the streets are boiling. Whatever's going on behind closed doors is deeper than anyone thought. And this war, it's nowhere near finished. 2 men, 1 deadly mission, but what really shook the streets were the dark rumors about Big Jook. Word started spreading that he had dropped a $40,000 bounty on Young Dolph's head. That's not pocket change, that's serious kill money. And it didn't stop there. Jook allegedly went to his right-hand man telling him to find some shooters who could handle the job. Ruthless doesn't even begin to cover it. But just like Yo Gotti's brother was out for blood, Lil Jeff's enemies and even their families weren't safe either. His squad was out here handling business without blinking. They were sliding hard for Jeff and no one was off limits. Why? Because while he was still breathing, Lil Jeff had turned the streets upside down. He wasn't just some rapper talking tough. He had his enemies terrified of the bloodhounds. So much so, people started putting his name next to one of the most feared names in the drill scene, King Von. Yeah, it got that deep. Lil Jeff's moves were reckless, bold, and deadly. He was pushing so hard in the streets, the comparisons to Von came fast. And if you know anything about King Von, then you already know. That ain't a name you toss around lightly. Von had a rep so dark, so savage, folks in the game started calling him rap's first serial killer. That's right, even other gang members were freaked out by Von. King Yellow once said he didn't even think Von was human, that he was too cold with it. And now people were saying Lil Jeff had that same type of energy, that same unshakable presence, that same untouchable mindset, and that same deadly streak until it all caught up to him. Some of his enemies, like FBG Young, were celebrating when King Von got gunned down in Atlanta. They weren't just relieved, they were over the moon. But what made Von so feared wasn't just the bodies, it was how he glorified the violence. He made murder sound slick, like it was part of the lifestyle. Shockingly, Lil Jeff started following that same path. He wasn't just sliding on ops, he was rapping about it, bragging about bodies, dissing the dead, and even talking about taking out female gangsters. He was reckless with it, and what's even crazier, both he and Von died in almost identical ways. Public shootouts, both targeted, both gone too soon. And here's the kicker, even from the grave, they stayed catching cases. Yeah, sounds wild, but after both of them were buried, their names kept popping up in murder investigations. That's how deep their legacies were tied to street violence. When it came to disrespectful, raw music, Von had it on lock. He never missed a chance to diss his dead rivals. Just look at what he did after FBG Duck got killed on August 4th, 2020. A month later, Von dropped the savage track GTA. In it, he rapped, he made a diss, and now he a ghost, and it happened fast. We need to toast it. That line hit hard because everyone knew who he was talking about. FBG Duck had made the fatal move of dissing Von's best friend T. Roy in his own track, Exposing Me, rapping. T. Roy ain't get shot inside his head, but he ain't make it though. They got so many deads, I don't know who to smoke. The disrespect went both ways, but the consequences, deadly. And Lil Jeff was running that same dangerous playbook. FBG Duck's murder was caught in full detail, and the footage was nothing short of horrifying. CCTV cameras captured a black car pulling up in front of a store. Then boom, doors fly open and masked gunmen hop out, spraying bullets without hesitation. Duck tried to run, but it was already too late. After lighting him up, the shooters jumped back in the black car while a gray Chrysler, also part of the hit, peeled off right behind them, leaving Duck bleeding out on the pavement. But it didn't end there. Later footage showed that same gray Chrysler speeding toward O Block with a cop car tailing close behind. The streets were hot and this hit was loud, too loud to go unnoticed. And Von? He didn't hold back. He mocked Duck's brother, FBG Brick, who had also been killed in Chicago. On the track Pressin', Von dropped one of his coldest, most savage lines. I mean, a switch, I can shoot a brick and they still say I hit. I mean, they caught that brick and hit him in it. He was throwing shots, literally and lyrically. And the story behind Brick's murder, just as brutal. On July 17, 2017, FBG Brick, his cousin, and Kobe Mack were in the Woodlawn neighborhood when a car rolled up, reportedly looking for FBG Duck. But since they didn't spot him, they drove off, only to double back later. Around 2:50 p.m., shots rang out loud and clear. Cops rushed to the 6,300 block of South Street, Lawrence, and found carnage. Kobe Mack was laid out in front of a home with a fatal headshot. FBG Brick, found further back in a gangway suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to his back and arms, straight up executions, and the violence kept spreading. Just like King Von, Lil Jeff made sure his music told the raw truth. No filters, no mercy. That verse wasn't just tough talk. It was a straight-up reference to one of his most infamous drills. the hit that took out two of his known rivals, Lil Rob and Monty. It went down on Friday, January 26, 2024, in broad daylight. Around 12:30 p.m., two cars came flying down the street toward the Washington train station, just steps from Innovations High School in downtown Chicago. The timing, ruthless. The location, bold. As soon as the cars stopped, masked shooters jumped out, strapped and ready. They opened fire with precision. The targets were clear, Monty and Lil Rob. No stray shots, no hesitation, it was a clean hit. Seconds later, the shooters jumped back in their cars and took off like ghosts, leaving Monty and Rob bleeding out in the street. Emergency crews pulled up fast, but there was nothing they could do. Both teens were rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but were pronounced dead on arrival. And what made it even more disturbing? A witness standing on the elevated train platform above had captured the entire aftermath on camera. The footage, graphic and heartbreaking, showed two young lives slipping away on cold concrete. That video hit the internet and went viral, sparking outrage, fear, and fascination all at once. While some were mourning, others were sharing it like street legend proof. Another drill turned into a deadly rap verse. In the viral footage of that downtown hit, one of the teens can be heard groaning in pain as he lay dying. And Lil Jeff? He took that exact sound and used it as the title of his next track, Cold Hearted. And if that wasn't enough, he went online mocking their deaths any chance he got, posting disrespectful captions and laughing at their final moments. No chill, no remorse. But that's not where the similarities between King Von and Lil Jeff end. See, both were rumored to have crossed a line most gangsters don't even touch, killing female ops. For Von, it was the infamous K.I., the teenage assassin from Chicago. For Lil Jeff, it was 25-year-old D-Money, also known as Demo. It happened in the early hours of November 1st, 2023. Lil Deuce and D-Money were chilling in a parked car on the 8300 block of South Dorchester Avenue. Just another quiet night in the city. But out of nowhere, things turned deadly. According to an eyewitness, two people crept up on the vehicle. No words, no warning. They let off a barrage of bullets, lighting up the car before disappearing into the shadows like ghosts. It was a targeted hit, no doubt. Lil Deuce got hit multiple times in the chest. Paramedics rushed him to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead shortly after arriving. D-Money didn't escape either. She was shot in the torso and rushed to the same hospital, clinging to life. While she fought to survive, the streets were already buzzing, because everyone knew this wasn't random. It was another calculated move in a war that had no boundaries. Not even gender was off limits anymore. But D-Money didn't make it. Not long after being rushed to the hospital, she died from her injuries. And all eyes immediately turned to Lil Jeff. He was the street's #1 suspect. And like always, Jeff couldn't help himself. He had to flex for the internet. Soon after the news broke, he jumped online, dropping cryptic posts that looked way too much like a confession. He posted hat emojis, a symbol often used to flex a body count. But what had people really talking? One of the hats had a feminine design, leading many to believe he was claiming the hit on D-Money. D-Money, also known as Demo, wasn't just any girl from the hood. According to Street Talk, she was a serious shooter, known for putting in work for her set. She was deep in the trenches, and one photo showed her posing with FBG Wookie, a major name in Chicago drill, and one of King Von's most hated ops. Funny enough, this story mirrors another infamous hit, King Von's alleged murder of K.I. K.I., real name Akira Barnes, was known as the Queen of the Streets. By 17, she had already built a name as Chicago's female assassin, with rumors tying her to multiple bodies. But even that rep didn't protect her. On April 11th, 2014, K.I. was walking with her brother FBG Buta and another friend near 6400 block of South Eberhart when her time ran out. A hooded shooter crept out of the shadows, raised a gun, and started blasting. She was gunned down in one of the most brutal hits in Chicago drill history. And just like that, another feared name from the streets was gone, proving again nobody's untouchable no matter how deadly their name rings. K.I. was hit 9 times. Bullets tore through her mouth, neck, and chest. In a desperate fight to survive, she tried to run, but her body couldn't take it. She collapsed on a neighbor's doorstep, bleeding out, her life fading with every second. Paramedics got there quick and rushed her to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but the damage was way too severe. It was over. She was gone. Her brother FBG Buddha and their friend also caught bullets, but it was obvious. Akira Barnes, aka K.I., was the main target, and for years, one big question haunted the streets. Who really killed K.I.? At first, police thought they had their guy. King Von was arrested after eyewitnesses pointed fingers his way. But just like many high-profile cases in the city, it fell apart. Not enough hard evidence, no gun, no confession, and Von walked free. But when King Von was murdered in Atlanta in 2020, the game changed. That same year, the truth came to light. Official documents confirmed what many in Chicago already knew in their hearts. King Von had pulled the trigger that killed KY. The police report laid out the hit in chilling detail. The shooter, described as wearing a gray hoodie and blue jeans, approached KI and her crew, pulled a gun, and unleashed a storm of bullets. It wasn't a random act, it was personal, cold, and calculated. That moment sealed Von's rep forever, not just as a rapper, but as someone who lived exactly what he rapped about. And even in death, Von's name stayed tied to murder cases, including one of the most ruthless killings in Chicago drill history. KI was tough, feared, and respected. But in the end, it didn't matter. In the streets, no name is too big, and no legend too deadly to fall. The shooter struck all three victims, and just like that, he vanished into a getaway car, leaving no trace behind. Cold, quick, professional. And the wildest part? Lil Jeff was later linked to the murder of Monty and Lil Rob by the cops, after he was already dead. Investigators dug deep, using social media posts, phone records, stolen car reports, and hours of surveillance footage to crack the case. Eventually, they identified 3 shooters, and one of them was none other than Lil Jeff. That meant Jeff could have been arrested alongside 22-year-old Tommy Coleman, who did get charged and is now facing 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, aggravated discharge of a firearm at an occupied vehicle, felon in possession of a firearm, and failure to register as a gun offender. Serious heat. But the eerie part? The way Lil Jeff died was almost identical to King Von's last moments. We already saw Jeff get gunned down while sliding on his enemies. Well, Von, same story. On November 6, 2020, Von had just left Opium nightclub celebrating the release of his debut album, Welcome to O-Block. He and his team headed over to Monaco Hookah Lounge, and that's where things popped off. As Von was getting ready to step out of his ride and head into the spot, one of his boys pulled up close and said something that flipped the mood instantly. Quando Rondo was in the parking lot. Von didn't hesitate. He was out the car in seconds, locked in, and moving toward Quando without saying a word. That split-second decision would change everything. Just like Jeff, Von's final move was a direct step into enemy territory, and he didn't make it out alive. Quando Rondo was just pulling up to the club when all hell broke loose. King Von, already on edge, spotted him and didn't wait a second. He charged at Quando, fists flying, with his crew right behind him. Von dropped Quando to the ground and his guys started jumping in. Stomping, swinging, chaos everywhere. Quando tried to fight back, but it was no use. He was getting rushed. Then out of nowhere, Lil Tim came around the car, clutching a burner, and started letting off shots with a BBL pistol. The crowd scattered in seconds. Von was hit in the torso, dropping hard as everyone scrambled for cover. 2 off-duty cops nearby pulled their weapons and fired back, hitting Lil Tim in the process. When the dust cleared, Von's team scooped him up, tossed him in a car, and sped off to the closest hospital, desperate to save him. Meanwhile, Lil Tim, wounded but alive, jumped in a car with Quando and made his own run to the hospital. And in the strangest twist of fate, both groups ended up at the same hospital. Tension was thick, but luckily, no more bullets flew. The war had paused all for a moment, but it was too late for Von. He died on the operating table, never making it out of surgery. Just like that, another feared street legend was gone. As wild as it sounds, Von and Lil Jeff had everything in common. The music, the violence, the body count, and the boldness. But real talk, there were only 2 ways this was ever going to end for either of them, jail or a coffin. And like FBG Bata once said, the King Von types don't last long in the streets. It's a cold truth that keeps repeating itself, one body at a time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to stay in the loop with all the latest tea. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, and I'll catch you in the next video.